Yo, what is up, guys? What is going on? Today, we're going to be talking about the big topic, full-time streaming. Now, the way that we're going to break this down is we're going to be talking about some main topics, some subtopics, and some topics that aren't really spoken about too much as well within full-time streaming. And some of the stuff you guys really need to know before even considering about getting into full-time streaming yourself. You're probably watching this video if you've either recently got into full-time streaming, or you're potentially thinking about it, or maybe you've just started off into streaming and you think, one day I would love to be into full-time streaming, and how can I kind of make my way into getting there. It's going to be quite a lengthy video, so please make sure you check out all the points in here, some really good valid points and things that I've learned over my experience in the almost 1 year that I've been doing full-time streaming. But before we get into that, just to let you guys know how I personally transitioned into full-time streaming. I was working in my previous job, and I took a 2-week holiday to kind of test a full-time streaming schedule and see how it would go. That for me and allowed me to do a full-time schedule for 2 weeks straight, and I was able to kind of test the waters to see how much money I would earn, to see how things would go. Would it make a difference in my statistics in terms of followers, average viewers, financials and stuff. I saw a big correlation between me going into full-time hours and obviously the return that was coming back from it versus what I was doing previously in part-time hours in my part-time job. And that for me made sense, but there was obviously a lot of other stuff that went around it, and this is what I'm going to do to break down to everything that we're going to be talking about. So some of the main topics we're going to be looking at today are some of the tips that I can provide for you guys in terms of financial situations, general stuff about like sub counts, gifted subs, donations, all that sort of stuff that you guys need to take into account in terms of the financial aspects of full-time streaming. We're going to be talking about a business plan. Do you guys have a plan going into it, or are you going to try and wing it? I would obviously recommend going with a business plan, having something that's sustainable and stable from the very start. The more you plan into it, the more you give yourself a chance for success. We're going to be talking about streaming days, hours, a potential way to set yourself a schedule to succeed and move yourself forward with things as well. Social media, of course, which is super vital and super important with everything that you do. Your USP, how are you standing out? What is your unique selling point? What is it that you're doing to make people want to come watch you? How are you going to grow your base? And other things that you could do as well. We'll call it MISC right now, where we're talking about like teams, organizations, sponsorships, anything like that that can help you kind of improve and increase the awareness to your brand as well. And we're also going to talk about a couple of hidden things as well, including tax and the bad times in full-time streaming, because just because you do it full-time doesn't mean that it's always a good thing. There are very bad times when it comes to full-time streaming. You're going to be able to deal with the good and the bad times moving forward. Okay, so we'll start with number one. Let's go with the first tip basis. So we spoke about financials. Now, this is probably going to be the number one for anybody and everywhere. We live in a world where we need money to survive. So obviously you need to take financials into regard with everything that you do. So depending on your financial situation and depending on your life situation, do you have kids, a car, mortgage? What are your overheads looking like? The more of them things that you have, the more financial stress you're gonna get from being a full-time streamer, and probably the more things like subs, donations, and bits you'll need to kind of survive on a monthly basis. So before you even think about doing it, have a real good look at your financial situation. Take a look at your overheads, take a look at your responsibilities and what you do in life. Think, can I commit to this financially, and do I actually have the time to do this? Because if not, and you kind of just jump into it, you may set yourself up for failure from the very start. So very, very, very important. Don't forget to have a look at that, as it's really key, and it's probably the number one thing before I'd even recommend getting into anything else when it comes to full-time streaming. People ask me, what do I think in terms of like a general sub count before you become a full-time streamer? With my life situation and what I had and what things were going on with me, I have no kids. I'm still happy at home where I am, and I'm pretty happy financially as well. I was able to take the risk, and jump into it at probably around 400 to 500 subscribers. Now, again, this may vary between people. Gifted subs are a massive thing as well, and obviously take gifted subs with a pinch of salt, because they can vary from month to month. There'll be months where you may get loads of gifted subs, there'll be other months where you don't get loads of gifted subs, and that can give you a false perception of how well you think you're doing sometimes. So be very careful in that. And of course, donations, bits, all that kind of stuff that comes through as well. Any merchandise that you set up that people can buy through, set yourself that business plan to financially succeed before even thinking about starting. All right, so that's really, really, really important. There isn't like a generalized sub count, but if I have to give someone like a round figure in terms of what you guys should probably strive for before even considering full-time streaming, I would say 400 to 500, which fitted my life personality, my life personally. For you guys who may have kids and stuff like that, you may be even looking higher, 700-800 subs consistently before thinking about it, because it is a lot, chat. It is a lot. You've got a lot of things to consider before going through and doing that. Next up, set yourself up a business plan. It's great to sit there and potentially rely on streaming for almost everything, but what about if it doesn't work out? Are you giving yourself the best chance to succeed? I offer things like mentoring. I have my mentoring packages, which brings me in a fair amount of revenue every month. I have my own merchandise, which I've set up through both my community and my own as well. That helps bring in some revenue as well. And of course, I provide loads of incentives to my audience, to my subscribers, to give back to them, to give them an incentive to want to subscribe, to want to give subs, to want to do this and want to do that, because I've built that rapport. I've built that, I spent a good solid 8 months building that before I even thought about getting into full-time streaming. So very important, get yourself a business plan. If there's anything else you can do to earn money financially outside of streaming as well, that's always going to be a big help and will put less stress on you when being able to move forward and doing things as well. So really, really important. Business plan ties directly in with the financials, guys. Very important. Make sure you get yourself planned. Do a lot of planning beforehand. Can you think of any other ideas? Kind of think outside of the box in terms of earning revenue, in terms of getting your name out there. Again, we'll talk about social media a little bit later on as well. But something to definitely, definitely set yourself up for success is to think around it and what else you can do. How can you set yourself out to be different and to give yourself that business plan in order to allow yourself to succeed? The next point that we're going to be talking about is your streaming days. Now, as of recent, my perception on this has changed a little bit due to some of the influences that I've been speaking to and that I've been kind of like interacting with and whatnot. I was usually a very strong believer on around 5 days a week, 4 to 5 days a week if you're full-time streaming. Probably at least I would say around 25 hours a week. I push a lot more than that, but again, it's up to you guys and what you can, sustain and what you actually want to do. But there are also full-time streamers who, don't put too much emphasis in terms of social media, and they actually kind of like, just do that kind of bit on the side, and they'll stream like 10 hours a day, like 4 to 5 days a week, or even maybe 6 to 7 days a week. And I used to be a big like no against that. I used to not really believe in that way of kind of getting yourself out there as a streamer. But the more I've been talking to these kind of influencers, the more I realize, actually that can work for them. It is a way to potentially burn yourself out if you're putting that many hours into it. If you're a one-game streamer, it would definitely help for you to do potentially that kind of way of doing it, because you're focusing on that one game at a time. The community's always going to know what you're going to be playing, and they're going to know what you're focusing on every time you stream. So if that's the way you want to do it, then fair enough, but there's a lot of hours and a lot of potential burnouts that might come with that. I've never experimented in that route, but that's another way to take it. For me, I would say 25 to 35 hours a week at the very maximum, maybe 4 to 5 days a week if you want to push a couple of more hours and go for it. I mean, that's what I personally do. Obviously, time zone is a massive thing as well. Have a look at your time zone. Think about peak times. Think about off-peak times. Think about what games do potentially well at what times. There's so many different strategies and things that you could look at. The UK time zone isn't that effective in my honest opinion. I get quite a lot of viewers from the States. And unfortunately, I'm not able to stream as late as I want to right now. But that being said, I do have plans to move that forward in future. So think about your streaming hours. When are you going to stream? When are you going to be able to capture an audience around a certain type of game? What are you going to be doing in that game to capture that audience in the first place before they even think about your time zone and think about you as a streamer? So streaming days are really important. Think about a schedule, which we spoke about in a previous video as well. Scheduling is so important. Builds consistency. It allows people to know when you're going to be streaming, what you're going to be doing on what days. Be very clear and concise with your audience and everybody that you're talking to as well. Next up, we're going to talk about social media. Of course, social media is massive. You guys, I'm sure know about all this already. How many different pieces of social media can you guys get yourself out on without overdoing it or without potentially burning yourself out? Twitter, I would say, is a must-do. Getting yourself and your brand out into Twitter. Discord as well. If you can set up your own community, it will definitely help in pushing your brand forward, in getting everybody involved in what you're doing, in you as a person, and trying to build up this full-time persona as well. Discord is massive for that. Instagram is something that I've been kind of working on, having like a place to showcase yourself in terms of clips, content, but Twitter can be used for that as well. And then obviously some potentials for your subscribers, including like Snapchat and WhatsApp. Maybe if you want to mix business and pleasure, get to know some of your your closer viewers or your subscribers, VIPs, anything like that. So again, it's thinking about how can you think outside of the box and how can you use social media to help escalate and push your growth forward. I would not recommend going it down my way, and the way that I've grown into full-time streaming is to very much utilize social media side by side with streaming, and use it as a way to both network with other content creators and a way to showcase your content out there, because it's really, really important that you get the message out there to people who haven't already seen your content, rather than kind of just hoping and waiting for people to come through on just Twitch. Get yourself out there on social media. Try and put content in people's faces. Download clips, post the clips out on social media, get them out on Twitter, get them out on Instagram. Gives people a chance to see your content and kind of see what's going on around with everything that's going on. Next, we're going to talk about USP, and this is probably the most important one out of all of them, is your unique selling point. What are you guys doing that's unique? What is it that you guys doing to trying to stick out from other content creators? Now, this could go down many different routes. Obviously, firstly, it's to do with your branding, your presentation, what you guys are bringing to the table versus other content creators. And then you've also got to talk about, game trends. If you find that you're not just like a just chatting streamer, or you don't do like segments like podcasts and stuff, you got to ask yourself, how do you stay up to date with the latest game trends? That's really important, especially in the gaming world. People are going to move towards the games that are popular at the time and to the games that are coming out and new releases and stuff. So you got to stay on top of that. In terms of USP, it's really just, talking about how do you brand yourself differently? How do you brand yourself effectively? How does your branding fit in with your personality? Are people going to see you and your branding, interlinked with your personality? Do they match? Is there like cohesiveness? Because it's really important that everything all links in together. Color theming is important. Some of you guys may think it is, some of you guys may not think it is, but color theming is really important. It builds cohesiveness. It allows people to see, you look professional in what you're doing and that everything kind of fits in the same style. So have a really good think about your unique selling point, what it is that you're going to be offering as a full-time, potential streamer. What is it you're going to be doing, to set yourself up there for success, along with the other points that we spoke about as well. And some other things that you could be doing. We call it MISC in the introduction, in terms of other ways of getting yourself out there. There are plenty of teams, organizations, stream teams, and sponsorships you could be looking at as well. I'd say be very careful with sponsorships. It is a great way to kind of elevate yourself potentially either above other content creators, or to kind of get your name out there and known within particular companies as well. However, there's a big difference between an affiliation and a sponsorship. Make sure you know what you're getting into before you get into it. Don't also sign a deal with a company that you have no passion or no motivation for, because it's just going to be seen right through you. If you try to promote a product or promote like a service via a company that you have no interest in, it's going to be very reflected in your personality, the way you talk about it, everything like that. So if it's a sponsorship that you're seeking, make sure you go out there and approach it via the sponsorship that you want, get it on the deals that you want as well. Some companies will look at you as a potentially, a smaller streamer via, some of the top guys on Twitch, and say, we could potentially take advantage of this person and offer them an affiliation and claim it as a sponsorship. If you're not getting anything out of the deal, if there isn't a, I'll do this for you, you do this for me kind of deal, and you work hand in hand, then it's not a sponsorship. Then what you're looking at is an affiliation where you promote their code and you get a bit of a potential, you have a potential for some earnings out of it and maybe a discount code. But that is just an affiliation. That is not a sponsorship. So be very, very careful in knowing the difference between the two. Teams, stream teams, organizations, all great ways again to get to get your name out there. Make sure you do your research before you get involved in any teams, organizations, anything like that. Have a look at who the top guys are. How transparent are they? Do they even have time for you? That's a big one. With the SSC, who's managed by myself, the hype unit, which has all the executives, including the management team, which is what I'm part of. You have to ask yourself, are you able to even contact these people at the top? Because if these people at the top have no interest in you or as a person, then that's going to pretty much reflect from top down. There needs to be transparency from the very top to the very bottom. Everybody needs to be communicating with everybody. So before joining a team, try and get a feel for how the other members feel about being in there. Try and see if you can scope out what the management think of the situation, and then try and get to know the owners as well. If they make the time for you and they show you that they really want you as part of their team, and the rest of the stream team are also really happy being there, that's usually a really good sign to kind of get in there and go. And finally, we're going to talk about the hidden elements when it comes to full-time streaming. It's firstly, before we get into tax, we're going to talk about the bad times. Now, Full-time streaming, I'll be honest with you guys, is a roller coaster of a journey. I've never experienced any other role or anything like that where things can just go from so amazing to so abysmal within, I don't know, the space of a couple of weeks. Like you can have a time whether it be financially, whether it be via average viewer counts, whether it just be like momentum going your way, where everything's just kind of up here, to other weeks where you just kind of sit there and bash your head against the computer and think, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. I'm really trying. In fact, I'm putting more time and effort into it now, and things are just not going my way. So don't be disregarded in that. We all go through it. Be prepared for that. As they say, when it comes to full-time streaming, full-time is literally full-time. Disregarding just the hours that I put in front of the camera, the hours I put behind the camera as well. We're working on YouTube projects, working on all sorts of projects in terms of branding for the channel, social media, supporting other friends, people, and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about way more hours than your average job. You're talking, unless you're prepared to do 100+ hours a week, probably, including absolutely everything, it's going to be really hard to kind of stick out there with other people who are really motivated to make this their full-time life and career as well. So keep that in mind. It is a full-time, pretty much all day, every day thing with, a couple of breaks in there as well, because you don't want to burn yourself out. But just keep that in mind that it is a lot of hours that you have to put into it. And there will be bad times. There will be times where you'll put so much effort into it and there'll be no reward and no payoff for it. We live in a world where no one is entitled to anything. Whatever you get is, earned via, the loyalty of your viewers, via the generosity of your viewers. So going into full-time streaming doesn't give you an entitlement to have anything above what anyone else does. You're not entitled to any subs you get. You're not entitled to any money you get. And that being said, some months you may not get anything. There could be a month where you stream all day, every day, and no one drops a dime on you, and they don't have to. There is no responsibility for that. And going into full-time streaming, you need to be aware of that. You need to be very, very aware that there can be times where nothing will come across. No matter how much work you put into it, people may not be able to financially support you. People may not be able to be there in your stream. And you need to just accept that. And you need to keep, creating content and diversifying your content to keep pushing forward and keep battling through the tough times, because it's hard. It's really hard. And I'm telling you guys exactly as it is. You better be prepared for that. Because if you're not prepared for that mental battle, you're going to fall straight away, because it's not an easy road moving forward. And then finally, we're going to talk about taxing. This one doesn't really get spoken about at all. If you're going to be self-employed, you also need to be self-employed within, the tax office. In the UK, we only have to submit taxes once a year, usually from January to January is our tax period, depending on when you go full-time. So make sure you do your research in regards to, how taxing works in regards to self-employment. When are you going to have to submit your taxes? Make sure you keep all your receipts, all that kind of stuff, so you can claim back on that. I believe in the States that you guys have to submit your taxes once a month, regardless if you're self-employed or not. So make sure you know the difference between countries and whatnot. And I believe also if you've earned over, I think it's either $1,000 or £1,000 within like a year's period, you have to claim for tax back on what you're doing. So I can't tell you guys enough. You do not want to have the tax man chasing you or the government on your back with this. Make sure you do your research in terms of, how does taxing work when it comes to self-employment? Are you going to set yourself up for self-employment? Are you earning enough for self-employment? And really do your research on that, because it's really important. You do not want to get in trouble for not paying your taxes, okay? Any other questions, messages on regards to what I've just said there, or anything else that we've spoken about today, please get in touch with me. You can find me at pretty much at I'mStallionTV on Twitter, or on any of my other socials that you can find linked down just below here as well. Thank you for checking out the video today. I hope this has given you guys a bit more transparency on how tough yet how rewarding full-time streaming can be. As again, I'll say it again, it is pretty much an all day, everyday thing. But if content creation is your passion and streaming is what you love to do, by all means, go out and do it. All I'm going to say to you is if I can do it, you can do it. All right, good luck, guys. Any other questions, feel free to hit me up. Have a great day.